Hi guys, welcome back. Thank you so much for being here. It is so greatly appreciated. Truly is. So today we're going back down the Reddit rabbit hole with a new story that I have not read yet. I have no idea what it's about, and I'm going to be reacting to it for the first time with you guys right now. She faked a miscarriage. My brother's ex narcissistic girlfriend. Okay, so before we even start, let me just tell you this. If you are having issues with pregnancy, I, not that I want to say, because I honestly don't know what's going to happen, but just from the title, I would say maybe think if you really want to continue to listen to the story. With that being said, uh, if you are somebody that is struggling with fertility, I am so incredibly sorry. I actually I suffered a miscarriage, my very first pregnancy, and it was absolutely devastating. With that being said, I did get pregnant with my daughter very shortly after. So I like to look at it as a blessing, because if that did not happen, I would not have her, because it was literally within a few months. Not everybody is as fortunate as me, and I realize that, and my heart breaks for all of you. I have actually had multiple girlfriends that have had trouble getting pregnant, and at least two of them that had to give pregnant to that had to give birth to their stillborn babies at 9 months pregnant. So I realized that I am one of the very lucky ones. Okay. I just wanted to put that out there. I'm so sorry for any of you that are experiencing it. I know how it feels to a point. Okay. Entitled X demands my brother pay her car payment. Context. My brother dated a narcissist that lied with every breath she took, faked illnesses for both her and her children, made sure my niece, the only biological child of my brother, didn't get anything that her four crotch goblins couldn't get to. Um, Not the nicest thing, since they are just innocent children, but I understand you're probably angry. Cheated on him and gaslit him to the point my brother's view of himself was completely destroyed. He was basically in a ABUSC relationship for 10 years and didn't realize it until recently. She had all his passwords. Later found out she had all his daughter's passwords as well, and would make fake Facebook posts on their behalf to type about how she was an amazing wife and stepmom and how much they adored her. My niece was the first to admit that she never wrote any of this stuff, and that in actuality, she hated Shannon. Well, the witch we'll call Shannon left my brother for another man, and after the initial hurt wore off, realized how much better off his life was without her. He was able to actually spend money on himself, bought himself some new jeans, got a new car, and lavished his daughter with everything she wanted, and that he wouldn't have been able to give her before, because if he did, he would have to buy 5 of them. Because if her children didn't get it, then it wasn't fair, and she would pitch a raging fit. My niece got a new wardrobe, new phone, new baseball gear, you name it. The funny thing is that Shannon left my brother for a man she thought was rich, but it turns out he was just as much of a liar as she was. For the first time, her children didn't have new clothes for school, and her bills were starting to pile up. Again, I understand that you probably hate this chick. I can tell, and we're only like a paragraph and a half in. But again, it's not the children's fault. It's never the children's fault. At one point, she did do something nice, returned a phone my brother was wanting back. She stole a lot of his things when she left, mostly his hoodies my mother bought him for Christmas. Now, after she did this, she contacted my brother asking if he would pay her $900 car payment because she was at risk of having her car repossessed. Why? Is this per month? Do you have a $900 car payment per month? Because if you do, then you should have your car repossessed. If it's because of back payments, okay, that makes a little more sense. My brother was floored she asked such a thing and told her no. Thanksgiving was coming up and he needed the money to travel to us. This would be the first time he'd ever spend it with us in years. Every holiday, she could try and keep him from coming, and if they did come, her kids would run around being loud and eating my other niece's diabetic snacks. Again, that's on mom. My kids don't do stuff like that because they know that they gotta deal with me if they do. That is a mom thing, honestly. It truly is. It's not a kid thing, it's a mom thing. If we got onto them, Shannon would get huffy and demand to leave because our family was disrespecting her again as a mother. Her little stop that. Her little demons are just the worst, and to make matters more horrifying, she put them up to doing things. Once she even got her little girl to throw rocks at my mother, and when she asked her to stop because she could put an eye out, she went to Facebook and completely twisted the story, saying my mother screamed in her poor girl's face, which didn't happen. I believe that because I feel like if your mother screamed in her face, Shannon would have pitched an absolute fit that nobody would ever forget. Shannon got angry with my brother and started posting on Facebook and telling everyone that my brother was selfish, that he had all his money now and wouldn't help her. Of course, people started looking at her like she was a loon. She left my brother, bragged she had a rich man, and was now saying my brother was selfish for not paying her bills. Word got back to my brother, and for the first time, he stood up for himself. He told her that he sacrificed 10 years of his life and did without so she and her children could have too. And how did she repay him? By cheating, causing problems for our family, manipulating his daughter, spreading lies about him, and now she had the audacity to call him selfish. Shannon promptly deleted the Facebook post and has been quiet for a few days now. But I'm so proud of my brother for standing his ground and not giving in to her. Considering we dealt with this woman for 10 years, there's a lot of stories I have on her, and she just continues to create more. I'm not exaggerating when I say she'll stab you in the back, tell you about how every man wants to sleep with her, and start drama just so she can twist around where she's the victim. I hate permanent victims. I cannot stand them. Okay? I know a few of them very, very closely, and they are probably the worst people in the world. They will never change. I'm convinced of it. They will never change. They will never get better because in their head, they didn't do anything wrong. They never do anything wrong because they're always the victim. It's just, you know what? Here's my PSA for the day. Stay fucking clear of these people because they're cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. Part 2. How we found out she was a narcissist. Narcissistic woman takes over my brother's home, lies about a heart condition, and tries to control everything. I made a post yesterday about my brother's ex-narcissistic girlfriend, and some people asked for more stories and update when one comes out. There will probably be one soon as my niece is running for homecoming queen and after being chosen by some of her classmates. Shannon's eldest daughter, we'll call her Minnie, is the same grade as my niece and they're both livid. My family dealt with Shannon for nearly 10 years, and in those years, she racked up quite a few stories. One of them that I remember best was when we first found out about her true nature. My brother had just divorced my niece's mother. My mom and I were going over to his house to redecorate, paint the place up to kind of cheer him up by making it more of his style. I was only about 14, 15 when this happened. When we pulled up to the house, there was piles of clothing outside in the yard along with furniture. My mom was confused, and my brother explained that Shannon's mother kicked her and the kids out after a heated argument, and they had nowhere else to go. He didn't know what to do. He didn't agree to let her stay with him, but she had 3 kids at the time and was pregnant with another that wasn't his. That wasn't his. He felt like he didn't have a choice but to let her stay. Ironically enough, my mom believes Shannon and her mother planned this because the very next day they had lunch together and acted like the best of friends. My brother's biological father was anything but a family man, so my brother strives to be the exact opposite of him. Within a month of them dating, Shannon was already moved into his home. Within a month of them dating while she was pregnant with somebody else's child? It's not a great look. My mother and I helped her move things in, and my mom got to noticing a few red flags. The main one I remember being that all the children's clothes looked like 2 sizes too small for them. I looked at the kids and she was right. The clothes they were wearing were stained up, which is normal for children, and they were much too small. We questioned it, and Shannon painted a haunting story about how her ABUSC ex-husband was and how he had stolen all of her children's good clothes and locked her in a bedroom to keep her from leaving him. And now she has to climb out of the window to get away from him. My mom found that to be an odd story. Why would he steal their clothes? After snooping, my mom found out her ex was actually a decent man who didn't have any of her children's clothing other than what he bought them after they split up. He stated Shannon never bought the kids new clothes, and this would prove to be true in years to come. Now, while my mom and I were decorating my brother's home, one thing she did was hang several pictures of my brother and his daughter in the living room. The biggest picture was one we had professionally done of my niece in a white dress holding a lacy umbrella that made her look like a little doll when she was younger, around 3 years old. She was about 5 or 6 at the time. A few weeks after moving in, Shannon stated that she wanted to take family photos for her parents and asked my mother, who at the time was working on getting her photography career off the ground, to take the pictures for her. My mother agreed, and the day she chose to take them, my niece was at her mother's house. Now, at one point during the photo taking, she asked my brother to be in them. My mom was hesitant, stating that if she wanted to include my brother, then would she mind waiting for a day when his daughter was here to be in the pictures? Of course, that is completely reasonable. Shannon stated that it was just for her parents and grandparents, that they liked my brother a lot and would love to have him in the photo. That still should not exclude the daughter. Now, not wanting to argue, my mother took the photos, and after they were finished with touch-ups, my mom gave her a few of the copies. The next time we went over to their house, I saw my mom freeze in the doorway. I looked up and noticed that the wall we had decorated with pictures had been altered. The only pictures with my niece in it were the small ones, and the rest had been moved, including the large professional one. In its place, the family photo with my brother in it and without my niece. Bitch. She's a bitch. My mom demanded to know where the photo was in a not so calm voice. Shannon explained she had it moved to the hallway. My mom went to the hall and stopped when she was at my niece's room. The new bunk bed my brother bought her had crayons all over it. It was built from wood so that Crayola didn't wash off entirely. Her shelves that had her expensive Barbies still in the box ripped from the walls. My mom walked in just in time to see one of the boys jump from her top bed and onto a mattress that had been drug into the room, possibly for the other kids to sleep on. And the youngest girl was hanging from one of the shelves that hadn't been torn down yet. The kids were treating her room like a jungle while my niece was at her mother's. My mom went bananas, yelling at them that what they were doing wasn't safe before completely blowing up on Shannon. I wouldn't say my mom was calm because she wasn't. All of our work to make the house look nice was being destroyed, and my niece is and always had been a neat freak. who was going to probably burst into tears when she saw her room. This poor little girl. My mom began screaming at Shannon, stating how dare she let her children destroy someone else's room and how dare she move a family photo onto the wall. Didn't she realize how that would make my niece feel excluded? Shannon began to cry, stating that she didn't want to make her children feel left out. And what about my kids? Are my kids supposed to do without? My brother wasn't on my mom's side as he hadn't seen the room yet. However, that changed with one thing Shannon did. She faked heart complications. She clutched her chest and told my mom she couldn't get worked up. She had a heart condition. We later learned from her family that this was a lie. My brother, who became worried, told my mom he would talk to her. My mom told me to get in the car and we left. She was livid the entire night. And of course, when my niece got home and saw her room and the family photo, I'm not sure how she reacted to the room, but the next time she came over to her house, she asked my mom why she would take a family photo without her. My brother promptly removed the photo, telling Shannon she wanted to give it to her parents, so it better go to their house. Of course, she fake cried again, stating my brother didn't see her children as family. When that didn't work, she pretended that her getting upset caused her to have more heart pains, and after that, my brother began walking on eggshells to prevent her from getting upset and worried. My brother promptly removed the photo, telling Shannon she wanted to give it to her parents, so it better go to their house. Of course, she fake cried again, stating my brother didn't see her children as family. When that didn't work, she pretended that her getting upset caused her to have more heart pains, and after that, my brother began walking on eggshells to prevent her from getting upset, worried that he'd throw her into a heart attack. We only learned recently that she doesn't have a heart condition and never did. It was all used as a weapon to keep my brother from upsetting her. The next time we came over to the house, my brother had put the shelves back up and, from what I could tell, tried the hardest to scrub the Crayola off the bed. The kids were still jumping off the top bunk and making an overall mess of her room. When I questioned it, Shannon gave me a look and stated, well, they live here too. They need a room too. My problem wasn't the room, but rather the fact that they were bothering my niece's things and destroying the room. I had no problem with them sleeping in it or keeping their toys in it. However, believing that her heart condition was real, I bowed out of that conversation, worried to set her off. Things only escalated when my mom put up photos of all her grandkids and children around the fireplace. When Shannon came over, her face fell and she began hysterically crying, stating that my mother didn't see her children as her grandkids. My mom was floored, saying she only knew her children for about 6 months and didn't have any photos of them anyway. Shannon complained to my brother, but he told her that he couldn't force my mom to change how she decorates, especially if she doesn't have pictures. So, my mom cut a deal with Shannon. If she provided the pictures, she'd put them up. However, Shannon didn't do this and instead told anyone who would listen that my mom hated her children. When asked about it, my mom said she had nothing against the kids. They were just kids. Their mother, however, she was beginning to hate very much. Within a few months, Shannon's children had broken my brother's TV, spray painted his coffee table, somehow managed to cut up the walls with what may have been scissors, destroyed nearly anything decorative that was glass, and tore holes in his couch. What? All of his nice furniture was replaced by secondhand that didn't look nearly as good or match together. What was worse was when he lost the house. Shannon stated she was paying the house payment, but the woman they were supposed to be making the payments to said she hadn't received money in 9 months. The same time Shannon moved in. So what was she doing with the money? Just taking it and spending it however on her what? On her kids? Probably on herself and her kids. My brother ended up being evicted from his house and had to move into an apartment in Shannon's name that her father had given to them. When this happened, my mom demanded to know why Shannon didn't move into this apartment when her mother first kicked her out. But of course, Shannon faked her heart condition again, saying that it was too stressful for her to talk about the situation with her mother. Even though they hung out often, according to her, and they were still fighting. Even though they hung out often, and according to her, they were still fighting. Within less than a year, my brother lost most of his good furniture and his house, but was too afraid to say anything because he was afraid of upsetting Shannon, and we didn't know at the time, but she was using his divorce against him, using it to make him feel like if he didn't have her, he'd never have anyone. That she was his angel that accepted him. His wife left him because he was stupid. My brother is very self-conscious about his intellect as he does have a learning disability. So he started going with what Shannon said because he saw her as this intelligent person that knew better. That's fucked up. Now my brother's constantly down on himself. He's afraid to try anything career-wise if it has a written exam that has to be taken, such as real estate, because he believes he's not smart enough to pass it. And because the apartment was in her name, anytime my brother would do something like question her motives, she'd throw him out. My brother, feeling like he was in the wrong, would always apologize, and she'd take him back and give him a second chance, since she loved him so much. She really just messed with his head. The house and the furniture was just items, but my brother and niece's self-esteem and empathy towards others had been completely altered. They both think lowly of themselves and are both now very hesitant to believe anyone's stories. Which is sad because most sane people aren't going to lie about having a medical condition. Facts. I know it really affected my niece because I was telling her about a girl I know who had cancer a few months back. And one of the first questions she asked me was, "Are you sure she really has cancer?" I told her people don't lie about that, and there's a video of her ringing the bell when she was deemed cancer-free, as well as pictures of her after she shaved her hair off when it was falling out. Her response, Shannon would. I couldn't disagree with her because all the medical illnesses she said she had or her children had, only for it to be lies. Examples include one of her children having autism. Okay, here we go. If you know anything about me, you know that I work with special needs children, specifically children on the autism spectrum. You also know that I had very, very, very low tolerance for shit like this, okay? This might be the most despicable, disgusting thing in the entire world. You are absolute garbage, garbage, if you pretend that your child has autism for any reason. Any reason. I don't care what it is, okay? These parents suffer day after day after day, okay? It is despicable. Let me paint this picture for you because this has been a huge, huge thing that I keep coming across at work. And I always have this discussion. This is one of the things that I think bother me the most. When your child is sick or something hurts them or they are crying, if you are lucky enough to have a child that can express it to you, everything else aside, but that can tell you what is wrong so you can fix it, you're incredibly lucky. There are children on the autism spectrum that cannot speak. They have no language, okay? They don't have the skills to write. They don't know how to write. Some of them are working on writing their name. It's a lot that goes into it. Point being, imagine being a mother or a father and your child, and we're talking third, fourth, fifth grade, is crying hysterical, you have no reason, you have no idea why, and they can't tell you. So you have to just keep guessing and hope at some point you guess correctly. Okay? To even remotely. I'm sorry, I'm ranting. I know I am ranting. I'm so sorry. This, don't ever, 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 ever do this. Ever. For any reason, ever. Okay, sorry, I'm sorry. And the other, having her stomach muscles deteriorate to the point that her intestines had fallen on top of each other, making it where she couldn't use the bathroom. No surgery was ever done, and supposedly the doctor gave her little one laxatives. I'm not a doctor, but I'm pretty sure that's a serious condition that requires surgery to fix. I'm not a doctor either, but I'm pretty sure that I would agree with you. It's a little heartbreaking to know this woman warped my niece's view of the world to the point she now thinks people's actions or their medical state might have some ulterior motive. Now, my brother is sharing her with gifts and trying his best to move on with a new girlfriend he met. However, every night, at least during the beginning stages of the relationship, he called my mom terrified that he's going to screw it up. One night he called her ranting about how much of an idiot he was and how he knew he blew it with her, that she'd never want to talk to him again, etc. What did he do? He was supposed to be going over to her house and fell asleep and woke up at midnight. His new girlfriend, I'll call Rhonda, since she likes MMA fighting, was a little miffed, but said she knew he had gotten off of work. She joked he hadn't blown it yet, but if he stood her up again, she would be at his front door. There's a lot more stories of Shannon since, again, 10 years of this mess. Manipulation, lies, and fake illnesses were normally her calling card for the dramatic situations she'd rope people into. Normally ending it by twisting the situation where she somehow became the victim. Part 3. She faked a miscarriage. My brother was in a toxic relationship with an entitled narcissist for nearly 10 years. They've broken up, and this is one of the things she did. She cheated on my brother, and when she got pregnant, she said she had a miscarriage. But she either lied about the pregnancy entirely or got an abortion. We don't know which is true. During this time, my brother had a very well-paying job. He was working security on an oil rig. I'm not sure how much he was making, but I do know that his first paycheck not only covered their bills, but Shannon bought all the kids new phones and went on a shopping spree for clothes for herself. Aren't you buying the kids clothes if their clothes don't fit them? From what I remember, my brother would be gone for a month, maybe 2, and then be home for a month. When he was gone, he would be somewhere around the world. I believe one time they actually traveled around France. I'd love to see France one day. Italy first, but I would love to see France. About half a year into his job, Shannon announced she was pregnant, with twins no less. My mother was both happy and devastated. She was excited for more grandchildren, but she didn't want my brother to have them with Shannon, mainly because she started using my brother's daughter as a weapon against us. If we didn't babysit her kids, who were little terrors, then we weren't allowed to see my niece. Her children were so destructive, would get into fights with each other, empty our kitchen of all snacks and sugary drinks, and if we said anything, Shannon threw a fit. I knew this as well, because once when I was painting Shannon's eldest daughter's nails, the youngest one came up to me and asked if I'd do hers. I told her once I got the first coat on the other girls, then I'd do hers because they asked first. She pouted at me and told me if I didn't paint her nails right now, she was going to tell her mother I wasn't including her. I told her that wasn't true and that I would do her nails, but I needed to finish her sister's first. I don't think she ever told her mom, but the point was the children knew they could use their mother as a threat to get their way. I also tried my best to be nicer to Shannon, and this backfired on me. When they came over to the house, I told Shannon that her twins would be born around Halloween, and it would be a cute idea to dress them as Twinkies. Twins, Twinkies, get it? Shannon suddenly busted out crying, saying she lost the babies. I felt horrible and started apologizing. After they left, my mom was a mixture of sad and relieved, and then ultimately sad, stating she didn't like Shannon, but no one deserved that. Fast forward several years to current year. Shannon has left my brother for what she thought was a richer man. During one of their hangouts with Shannon's friends, she and her new boyfriend began to mock Derek. I thought that was the brother. I don't think it's the brother. A very openly gay man Shannon was friends with and had been for years, at least 5. Shannon stated she couldn't stand how gay he was and how he flaunted it around. Of course, one of the mutual friends went back to Derek. Derek went back to my brother and stated how she had been cheating for years along with some other information. Good for you, Derek. Fucker. There was never a miscarriage, and this is where things get a little messed up. During the time of the miscarriage, I had a boy talking to me that tried to contact me late at night, around nearly midnight, for me to come over to his house. Knowing what that means, I told him that I wasn't interested in that sort of thing. After that night, he never contacted me again. Derek explained that apparently that was Shannon's doing. Knowing I was a virgin, still am, I'm asexual, didn't know it during the time. Knew if she gave this man I was talking to, we'll call Bugby, her number, she would be able to give him what I couldn't. So right after calling me, he called her and she rushed over. They did the lion sleep in the jungle tonight and he cut contact with me. You're better off. Fuck. You are so better off. You dodged a bullet, girl. My brother was away on the ship during this time, and this was also the time she had gotten pregnant. When the doctor told Shannon how far along she was, she realized it was a month too early to be my brother's children and had them terminated. Oh my God. I have said this before, and I will say this again because I firmly stand by this, okay? I am pro-choice. That might not be everyone, that might be a very unpopular opinion, but I am pro-choice. But, however, not as a means of birth control. I am pro-choice if something tragic happens and it results in a baby that you cannot mentally give birth to. Not as a form of birth control, and not because you're cheating on your boyfriend. That I don't agree with. Now, in my family, we believe terminating a child should be done in extreme circumstances. Me too. Cheating on your boyfriend while he's away on a ship is not one of those. Yeah, see? We're like this. Is not one of those circumstances. However, according to Derek, it was possible that she lied about the termination as well. When we asked what he meant, he explained the ultrasound pictures she showed us pictures of was from the internet. He was with her when she printed it out. She told him she needed it to show Bugby to get the money for the abortion, but didn't know she was planning to show it to us as well. So we didn't know what to believe. However, I know my mom was fuming because one of 2 options were available. Shannon cheated on my brother with a man I was talking to and interested in and got an abortion to cover her tracks. Or she got money from this man under false pretenses and lied about the miscarriage and pregnancy altogether. Neither option was good, especially since if the second option was true, The only reason she told us about the pregnancy was to garner sympathy points and start drama. When my brother found out about this, I think it was the first time he realized how emotionally manipulative this woman was. She had cried in his arms at her house over the miscarriage, actual tears. This sparked him to find out what else she lied about, and boy, oh boy, did they start piling up. She never had a heart condition, like she said, and her youngest son was never tested for autism. Apparently, she only said that because the kid's biological father had another son who did have it. After spending a week with him and his wife approached my brother saying that the child didn't have autism. The only thing wrong was that no one ever made him behave, and those two are vastly different. They sure as shit are. Now, the boy's bio father is enraged he was lied to about this and that she had their son convinced he had autism, using it to get attention on Facebook. He's planning to file for custody, as he should, mainly because since he was never made to mind and was told he had autism, the boy, who is around 9 years old, will sometimes revert into acting 4 years old and start talking like a baby, throwing temper tantrums when he doesn't get his way. After some time with his father, barely a month, he's already growing out of this. He acts more his age now. However, he'll sometimes revert to baby talk. For example, if he wants water, instead of asking for a glass of water, he'll say it like this: "May I please have water?" Basically, his own language. His wife is kind of insulted that Shannon was making people think this behavior was associated with autism because it made people have a negative view on the illness. I just don't know if I would call it illness as much as a disorder. My brother confronted Shannon about this, who still maintains she took him to someone who's supposed to monitor kids and examine them to see what side of the spectrum they're on. This ended up being her downfall because she gave the number of the person. Come to find out, she was the daughter of a family friend, so my brother had no problem getting into contact with her. The woman, I'll just call Nina, said that she did see Shannon's son, but told her that he wasn't on the spectrum. If he wanted to, he could speak plainly, and he interacted with people, including strangers, just fine. She said he might have behavioral issues she could work on, but he didn't have autism. It's despicable. That is despicable. That is gross. Lie after lie is coming out about this woman, and she's been doing some crazy, insane things I didn't even think was possible for her. All the while, she plays victim and paints my brother as the villain in her story. Part 4. The rock incident. I want to thank everyone who's been sending good wishes to my brother and niece so far. They're in a lot better place and appreciate the encouraging words. Shannon encouraged her daughter to throw rocks at my mother, and when my mom asked her to stop, she went on Facebook and twisted the story, then claimed it's her Facebook, she'll post whatever she wants. I can't remember the exact age I was when this thing happened. Some of Shannon's antics began to just blend together at this point. But I do remember that during this time, my mother was trying to get her photography career off the ground and had bought one of those really expensive cameras to use. Nikon. It had 3 different lenses you could change out. Of course, new toys must be played with, and we were getting ready to leave to go to the park with my other niece, who belongs to my sister, who we'll call Banana. That's her family nickname. My mom went to test how well pictures came out while we're running on the swings and then figure out the settings on it. As we're leaving, Shannon pulled up with her 2 girls and my niece, who I just realized I haven't given a fake name to. So we'll call her Esme. She asked where we were going, and my mom said to the park and invited them along. Well, while we're there, my mom was testing out her camera while the children played. I sat on the swings since I do remember being too old to play in the jungle gym around this point. My nieces and Shannon girls were running around when her eldest, Minnie, suddenly grabbed a handful of rocks and threw it at the girls. My mom yelled at her not to do that, stating that it was dangerous. Shannon gave my mom a hateful look and called Minnie over. They both started walking a little ways from us, and I could see they were talking. I just figured Shannon was having a fit about my mom getting onto her daughter. However, suddenly Minnie came racing back towards us at full speed, started grabbing a handful of rocks, and started throwing them wildly at my mother. My mother, trying to protect the lens of her new Nikon camera, started yelling at Minnie to stop. When Minnie didn't stop, my mom yelled that if she didn't stop right now, we'd leave the park. Now, while this was all happening, Shannon was just walking back towards Minnie. She didn't want to stop her or even yell at her. Shannon did nothing to make Minnie stop. After my mom shouted she'd make them go home, Minnie stopped throwing rocks. However, Shannon walked over and said that she was leaving anyways in a pretty nasty voice. She left with Esme and her two girls, and my mom, who was now in a bad mood, took us home. Luckily, none of the rocks scratched her lenses or damaged her camera in any way. A few days passed, and my aunt called my mom asking if she saw Shannon's Facebook post. My mom went onto her page and just saw the usual photos. But my aunt swore that she had made a long post about my mother and that she was looking at it right now. So she screenshot it and sent it to her. That's when we learned Facebook has a setting where you can choose who can and can't see your posts. That's absolutely true, it does. She wrote a long paragraph about how my mother threatened to scream at her daughter when she threw rocks at the park. She left out the part about how Minnie was throwing rocks at people and was acting like my mom threatened to hit her child within an inch of her life. My aunt then sent screenshots of the comments. All of Shannon's friends were acting like my mom was out of line and an overall horrible person, demonizing her. I came clean to my mom, telling her that I saw Minnie and Shannon walking together before the little girl suddenly came bolting over towards my mom and started throwing rocks like crazy. I told her I was convinced Shannon put her up to it. On top of everything else, this woman is trying to start up a business, okay? And newsflash, people do not want to work with somebody that they believe hurts children or says that they will. People don't want anything to do with that, especially if the person that you're going to hire, you will have your children around. Because if you're a photographer, the chances that you're going to go through your career without having to photograph children is a big fat zero, basically. Since my mom couldn't see the post to clarify what happened, she made a Facebook post about it. Well, within the hour, Shannon was over at the house with my brother, demanding to know why my mom posted that and wanted her to remove it. In my mom's post, she wrote about what a horrible liar Shannon was and about what actually happened. One line I fuzzily remembered basically stated that Shannon was a terrible mother for putting her child up to this. My mom said she did it to clear her name. We live in a very small town, so everyone knew everyone. And stuff like this was damaging to your name. Because, you know, small country towns where everyone knows everyone, keeping your name clean is detrimental. Not only did Shannon proclaim she didn't tell Minnie to do that, but when my mom brought up the post, Shannon lied, saying she never posted anything. My mom showed the screenshots her sister had sent her. My brother remained quiet most of the time, letting them settle things. But when he saw the posts, I saw him giving Shannon a curious glance. My mom said that when Shannon removed her post, she would remove hers. Fair. 1,000,000,000%. Shannon then sputtered out, "It's my Facebook page. I can post whatever I want." To which my mom responded, "Then I can do the same." Bravo. My brother looked floored at Shannon's response and then stated, You told me you had no idea what my mom was talking about. Apparently, he had been silent so he could listen to both sides to find out the truth. They left, my brother angrily looking at Shannon as they did. When my mom called later to find out how things were going and what happened, my brother started laying into Shannon about treating his mother the way she did and lying about her. However, Shannon's heart condition started giving her problems, and he had to spend the rest of the night comforting her to make it stop. After that, anytime we went somewhere with Shannon, my mom tried to take another adult with us, such as my sister or my aunt. So that way, if she tried to set her children up to do things and then lie about them, my mom would have an eyewitness to the event. This is disgusting, okay? This should never, ever have to be done in a family, ever. What the? People suck. What is wrong with people? I just want to know what the actual fuck is wrong with people. I really want to know. Part 5, the scooter. My blunt brother bought our niece's Christmas presents and caused Shannon to blow up. Some people have been asking for more stories about Shannon, and I'm happy to give them because it's kind of therapeutic at this point. Like I stated before, Shannon's children had to have everything my niece Esme had. This went from clothing to toys to food. Freaking food. We found out from Esther that after Shannon had finally moved out, that when her dad wasn't home, if Shannon ordered out, then she would order herself something and then an extra plate, sometimes 2 for the kids to share. 5 kids to share 1 or 2 dishes? Isn't that insane? This also applied to Christmas. If my mom bought one more thing for either Esther or Banana, Shannon would have a hissy fit and say my mom was playing favorites. However, when we just had Esme, which was rare since normally Shannon would badger us into watching another one of her kids, we would take Banana and Esme shopping. When we did this, a lot of times her father would pitch in money so we could get her something extra nice. Fair. That's his biological daughter. And I get, yes, all of the children should be treated equally. I completely get that. But on the other hand, if he wants to do something extra for his daughter, I don't think that there's anything wrong with that. First off, some context. I am one of 4 siblings, the youngest. My sister has a different dad. My brother, Esme's father, has a different dad. And my brother will call Brian, and I have the same father. Just in case anyone's curious, my sister's father died from cancer. My oldest brother's father ran out on him when he was a kid. And Brian and I's father is still married to our mother. Why is this important? My mom never, ever forced my sister and brother's grandparents to buy for us. She never even brought it up. And I didn't think much about it when they would get presents from them because I knew I didn't have the relationship my siblings had with them. My mom always proclaimed it was unfair for her to buy the exact same way she would for Shannon's kids, especially since Shannon did not hold her parents to the same standard. They never bought for Esme. So, due to having to buy the exact same for 6 kids, not being called cheap, if she tried to get them a bunch of gifts for a smaller price, Esme didn't get much for Christmas, and then would have to watch Shannon's kids come home with special gifts from their grandparents. Right. So, in other words, the boyfriend's family had to buy all these children these same gifts, but Shannon's parents could buy her children the nicest gifts and not include Esme. Seems quite fair now, does it? And half the times, Shannon's kids would end up taking Esme's clothing since she was close in age with her 2 daughters, or they would break her toys. Well, Brian lived on his own at this point and didn't have a lot of money, so he didn't buy for everyone this particular Christmas. He only bought for Esme and Banana since they're kids. On Christmas Eve, We always open presents on the eve and then go to my grandparents' house on the day. He brought over a scooter for Banana and a volleyball for Esme. She was just getting into the sport at the time. The only problem was Shannon and her kids were there. Shannon's youngest daughter came bouncing up to Brian after he handed the gifts over to Esme and Banana, asking where hers was. Brian, being the blunt, straight to the point person he was, simply stated he only brought for Esme and Banana because he didn't have a lot of money. Oh boy, did Shannon get angry. She instantly stood up, told her kids to grab their stuff and go out to the car. She did, and Shannon marched out, giving my brother, Brian, dirty looks and even left her own presents there that my mother had gotten her. My mother tried several times to give them to her. They eventually went straight into the garbage. My mom told Brian she's not sure she should have done that. She really wanted to keep the peace around the holidays because my grandfather, during the time, was sick, and we didn't know how many more Christmases we'd get with him. Brian said he didn't care. Not only was he sick of this double standard of not being able to buy one item more or different for Esme, and Sharon's parents not being held to the same standard, but he says it was outrageous for Shannon to expect him to buy for her children. Children he had only seen a handful of times and had no emotional relationship with, especially when he wasn't allowed to get different presents or cheap presents, meaning he'd have to pay for the same gift 6 times. I didn't agree with completely excluding Shannon's kids since they were just kids. They couldn't help what their mother pulled. But Brian stayed firm on his stance because Esme's Christmas was always ruined by this kind of pandering. The next day, we were supposed to meet up for Christmas at my grandparents'. My brother and Shannon didn't show. My mother called them, and my brother explained Shannon had gotten really upset last night, so they were doing their own Christmas celebration at home since the kids didn't open their presents last night and that they would try to come over later. Well, according to my brother, when it was time for them to leave, Shannon threw a world-class hissy fit and began breaking down, crying, saying she felt like his family hated her before, of course, faking the heart complications. Brian went to my mom and apologized, worried his actions ruined Christmas. After that, we went home and I saw that Esme's volleyball had been left in the corner of our dining room. The dining room was by the front door. I was confused, and the next time I saw Esme come over without Shannon's kids, I tried to give it to her when she was leaving. She told me, giving me a nervous look, "Can I just leave it here, please?" I asked her why, and Esme just said it was because she wanted to. Now, today, Esme admits it's because she knew Shannon's kids would pop it, and it would be safe at our house. She explained on the way out the door, she ran into the dining room and hid it there so the other kids wouldn't see it. She admitted she did this with a lot of things we had bought her when Shannon and her children weren't around and kept them in Banana's room. I asked Banana about it and she backed up Esme's story, saying she was always keeping the toys or jewelry we'd buy her in her room. It's awful knowing Esme had to basically hoard her things, and I'm honestly surprised it didn't cause her to grow up with some psychological issues, like actual legit hoarding. Her father, now knowing the full extent of how Shannon treated her, has been showering her with gifts ever since because he feels insanely guilty over the entire thing. My mother and I have to keep reminding him that he was in a mentally abusive relationship. That even if he had said something, which we found out he did many times, Shannon would just gaslight him, using her fake condition to guilt trip him into dropping it, which he did. My brother maintains that he should have never let himself be manipulated like that, stating that Esme didn't have anything that was her own, a room, clothing, toys, or even food as a kid, and that he needs to make it up to her. I tell my brother not to be too hard on himself. Half the stuff he didn't know about, and the rest she twisted to make him seem like the bad guy for not doing. Well, my brother admits that Shannon had a way of making you feel guilty for stuff that you know you shouldn't. He's not entirely convinced it was a mentally abusive relationship. I strongly disagree with him on that. Sadly, this wasn't the worst thing Shannon did to Esme, and I might talk about that if people want another part. In all honesty, you can't buy for them unless you buy for mine was petty and insignificant compared to this. What? All right, guys, because this is getting really, really long, I'm going to make a part two. Part two is going to be linked right in the description, so you can go right now to watch it.